The year was 2017. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson appeared in several high-profile films, including The Fate of the Furious, Baywatch, and Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. Desperado was one of the biggest hits of the year. In the US and around the world, it broke multiple records as it became one of the most streamed songs of all time. Bitcoin surged to new heights, starting out 2017 at less than $1,000, and by year end, it had climbed to almost $20,000 before settling at just below 16,000 per coin. In one of the biggest events of the year, the Great American Eclipse that swept across the nation from west coast to east coast on August 21st. The total solar eclipse captivated millions of people as they gathered to experience the rare occurrence of day turning to night. And amidst all of that, Nikon released the D850, a professional DSLR camera that promised to be a landscape photographer's dream, which incidentally is why I bought one. It turned out to be the swan song for Nikon DSLR as the company began shifting to mirrorless cameras the following year. Now fast forward to 2023, and the folks with Adorama used department were kind enough to let me borrow this 6-year-old Nikon D850 so we can determine if this camera is worth getting in 2023, even though this is considered to be older technology. The question is, should you buy used? Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on specs and features of this camera. There are already a zillion videos out there that do that. So, however, what I will do is highlight just a few of the major components of the camera and kind of look at this as a quick refresher. Starting off, you have a 45.7 megapixel sensor that's back illuminated. Now this has no low pass filter in it, so this is going to really result in incredible image quality. Now in this camera, you have the X-Speed 5 image processor, which works with the sensor to create images with less noise and wider dynamic range. Plus, it enables the full frame video recording. And actually, speaking of video, the D850 is capable of 4K UHD video in 16.9 format, 30, 25, or 24p. You have a 153-point autofocus system with 99 cross-type sensors and a dedicated autofocus processor that allows focusing down to -4 EV. Native ISO is 64 to 25,600. Now this is expandable to 32 to 102,400. You have 7 frames per second continuous shooting and up to 9 frames with the optional. You can get the MB D18 battery grip and the EL18 Bravo or Alpha battery. Now other features include this 3.2-inch tilting touchscreen. You have a optical viewfinder with 100% coverage and the ability to create 4K and 8K time-lapse out of this camera. So again, a lot of really cool tech in here. Now, as I'm here with this D850, I have to say, I'm getting a bit nostalgic of just having one of these things in my hand. Now, many of you may know, when the D850 came out, I snatched up one of these as quickly as I could. I mean, this was my primary camera for several years until I made the move to Nikon mirrorless, actually the Z7, when the Z7 came out. In fact, of all the cameras I've ever owned, the D850, this camera right here, is hands down one of my favorites. And as I'm holding this thing here, I'm just reminded of just the pleasant ergonomics that this camera has. But 2023 is a much different world than it was back when this thing first came out. So let's head out in the field and see if this camera can hold up to today's standards. All right, folks, let's wrap this up. So the question that we started with, is the Nikon D850 still worth the buy in 2023? Well, the short answer is yes. Actually, hell yes. You bet it is. Now, I mean, let's be real here. This camera is like many of you know, I'm a car guy. So this is like a vintage car that never goes out of style. It still rocks a killer 45.7 megapixel sensor. It has 4K video and that autofocus still snappy as ever. Now, I know, the tech world is always churning out the next big thing, but don't let that fool you. The D850 has proved its mettle over the years. The image quality, the handling, the low light performance, it is all in this camera. Plus, it's compatible with a ton of Nikon lenses. It's like having an all-access pass to creativity. So here's the thing, whether you're new to the photography game or a grizzled vet, the D850 could be just the ticket. It's not always about having the shiniest new toy. No, sometimes the tried and true road-tested gear is the absolute way to go. Now you can buy used gear from a lot of places, but not all of them are as reputable as the next. Now Adorama has a huge used department with cameras. And it's funny because I didn't always know that. Many of you may know, for the last 23 years or so, most of my cameras that I've used in my studio, outdoors, and long before I started doing this YouTube thing here, were picked up through Adorama. And I always knew them as a used, that's where you go to get used gear. Had no idea that they had a used department with a ton of cameras, lenses, and a ton of other photography gear. Actually, speaking of which, I will put a link in the description below if you want to give their inventory a once-over. But Adorama, yeah, I absolutely love this store. They've really taken care of me over the years, and the fast shipping really, you know, it hits it home. And plus, it's cool that they're letting me sign out these older cameras here, and so we can create videos for you folks, because really, at the end of the day, going back to the question, buying used, you know, right now, especially if you're starting out, save a few bucks, buy a used camera, master the fundamentals of photography, then, you know, start entertaining, looking for a camera that you feel that might suit your needs a little bit more, the direction that you want to go. But yeah, and then when you look at this camera right here, it's funny, when I took it out of the box, I was looking at this, I'm like, geez, this really looks absolutely brand new. The lens, the camera, everything about it. And again, I said this earlier, there's a bit of nostalgia that is really kicking in. The more I handle this camera here, absolutely love it. But anyway, that is all for me. Now, if this chat helped you out, do me a favor, hit that like button down below, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe. And remember, you get out there, stay healthy, and find your best shot.